Hello, Squirrel Squad. We were in the middle of, what was this, the second chapter? Hang on. Pretty sure it was. No, the first chapter of Coming Home, sorry. Part 2. I'm going to go back a little bit. He wished himself back again in 5 minutes. And this is talk about Charlie. For Max said something that produced a gale of laughter, and when he took a look over his shoulder, the wrathful dove was cooing so peacefully and pleasantly he was sorely tempted to return and share the fun. But Charlie had been spoiled by too much indulgence, and it was hard for him to own himself in the wrong even when he knew it. He always got what he wanted, sooner or later, and having long ago made up his mind that Rose and her fortune were to be his, he was secretly displeased at the new plans and beliefs of the young lady, but flattered himself that they would soon be changed when she saw how unfashionable and inconvenient they were. What was that book? Just Like a Man. Musing was in the Anne series. Musing over the delightful fortune he had laid out, he made himself comfortable in the sofa corner near his mother till the appearance of a slight reflection caused both groups to melt into one. Aunt Plenty believed in eating and drinking, so the slightest excuse for festivity delighted her hospitable soul. And on this joyful occasion she surpassed herself. It was during this informal banquet that Rose, roaming about from one admiring relative to another, came upon the 3 younger lads who were having a quiet little scuffle in a secluded corner. "Come out here and let me have a look at you," she said enticingly, for she predicted an explosion and public disgrace if peace was not speedily restored. Hastily smoothing themselves down, the young gentleman presented 3 flushed and merry countenances for inspection, feeling highly honored by the command. "Dear me, how you 2 have grown, you big things. How dare you get ahead of me in this way," she said, standing on tiptoe to pat the curly pates before her. For Will and Geordie had shot up like weeds, and now grinned cheerfully down upon her as she surveyed them in comic amazement. "The Campbells are all fine, tall fellows, and we mean to be the best of the lot. Shouldn't wonder if we were 6-footers like Grandpa," observed Will, proudly, looking so like a young Shanghai rooster, all legs, and an insignificant head that Rose kept her countenance with difficulty. "We shall broaden out when we get our growth. We are taller than Steve now, a half a head, both of us," added Geordie, with his nose in the air. Rose turned to look to Steve, and with a sudden smile beckoned to him. He dropped his napkin and flew to obey the summons, for she was queen of the hour, and he had openly announced his deathless loyalty. "Tell the other boys to come here. I've a fancy to stand you all in a row and look you over as you did me that dreadful day when you nearly frightened me out of my wits," she spoke, laughing at the memory of it as she spoke. They came in body, and standing shoulder to shoulder, made such an imposing array that the young commander was rather daunted for a moment. But she had seen too much of the world lately to be abashed by a trifle, and the desire to see a girlish test gave her courage to face the line of smiling cousins with dignity and spirit. "Now I'm going to stare at you as you stared at me. It's my revenge on you 7 bad boys for entrapping one poor little girl and enjoying her alarm. I'm not I'm not a bit afraid of you now, so tremble and beware." As she spoke, Rose looked up into Archie's face and nodded approvingly, for the steadily gray eyes met hers fairly and softened as they did. So a becoming change, for naturally they were rather keen than kind. "A true Campbell, bless you," she said, and shook his hand heartily as she passed on. Charlie came next, and here she felt... I thought that was... Who was that? Archie. Okay. Charlie came next, and here she felt less satisfied, though scarcely conscious why. For as she looked, there came a defiant sort of flash, changing suddenly to somewhat warmer than angry, to something warmer than anger, stronger than pride, making her shrink a little and say hastily, "I don't find the Charlie I left. But the prince is still there. But the prince is there still, I see." Turning to Mac with a sense of relief, she gently took off her winkers, as Jamie called them, and looked straight into the honest blue eyes that looked straight back at her, full of a frank and friendly affection that warmed her heart and made her own eyes brighten as she gave back the glasses, saying with a look of tone of cordial satisfaction, "You are not changed, my dear old Mac, and I'm so glad of that. Now say something extra sweet to me, because I'm the flower of the family," said Steve, twirling the blonde mustache, which was evidently the pride of his life. Rose saw at a glance that Dandy deserved his name more than ever, and promptly quenched his vanities by answering with a provoking laugh, "Then the name of the flower of the family is Coxcomb." "Aha, who's got it now?" jeered Will. Let us off easy, please," whispered Geordie, mindful that their turn came next. "You blessed beanstalks, I'm proud of you, only don't grow quite out of sight, or even be ashamed to look a woman in the face," answered Rose, with a gentle pat on the cheek of either bashful young giant, for both were red as peonies, though their boyish eyes were as clear and calm as summer lakes. "Now me," and Jamie assumed his manliest air, feeling that he did not appear to advantage among his tall kinsmen, but he went to the head of the class in everyone's opinion when Rose put her arms around him, saying with a kiss, "You must be my boy now, for all the others are too old, and I want a faithful little page to do my errands for me." I will. I'll marry you too, if you'll just hold on till I grow up," cried Jamie, looking rather losing his head at this sudden promotion. "Bless the baby, what is he talking about?" laughed Rose, looking down at her little knight as he clung about her with grateful ardor. "Oh, I heard the aunts say that you'd better marry one of us and keep the property in the family, so I speak first, because you are very fond of me, and I do love curls." Alas for Jamie, this awful speech had hardly left his innocent lips when Will and Georgie swept him out of the room like a whirlwind, and the howls of that hapless boy were heard from the torture hall, where being shut into the skeleton case was one of the mildest punishments inflicted upon him. Got fruit flies again. Dismay fell upon the unfortunates who remained, but their confusion was soon ended, for Rose, with a look which they had never seen upon her face before, dismissed them with the brief command, "Break ranks, the review is over," and walked away to Phoebe. "Confound that boy, you ought to shut him up or gag him," fumed Charlie irritably. He shall be attended to, answered poor Archie, who was trying to bring up the little marplot with the success of most parents and guardians. The whole thing was deuced disagreeable, growled Steve, who felt that he had not distinguished himself in the late engagement. Excuse me. I can't read today. Truth generally is, observed Mac dryly as he strolled away with his odd smile. As if he suspected discord somewhere, Dr. Alec proposed music at this crisis, and the young people felt that it was a happy thought. I want you to hear both my birds, for they have improved immensely, and I'm very proud of them. And the doctor, twirling up the stool and pulling out the old music books. I had better come first, for after you have heard the nightingale, you won't care. After you've heard the nightingale, you won't care for the canary, added Rose, wishing to put Phoebe at her ease, for she sat among them looking like a picture, but rather shy and silent, remembering the days when her place was in the kitchen. I'll give you some of the dear old songs you used to like so much. This was her favorite. I think, and sitting down, she sang the first familiar air that came, and sang it well in a pleasant but by no means finished manner. It chanced to be the Burkes of Aberfeldy. And vividly recalled the time when Mac was ill and she took care of him. The memory was sweet to her, and involuntarily her eye wandered in search of him. He was not far away, sitting just as he used to sit, when she soothed his most despondent moods astride of a chair with his head down on his arms, as if the song suggested the attitude. Her heart quite softened to him as she looked, and she decided to forgive him, if no one else, for she was sure that he had no mercenary plans about her tiresome money. Charlie had assumed a pensive air and fixed his fine eyes upon her with an expression of tender admiration, which made her laugh in spite of all her efforts to seem unconscious of it. She was both amused and annoyed at this very evident desire to remind her of certain sentimental passages in the last year of their girl and boyhood, and to change what she had considered a childish joke into romantic earnest. Rose had very serious ideas of love. Mercy, I'm so sleepy, y'all. I don't think I'm going to make it. Serious ideas of love, and had no intention of being beguiled into even a flirtation with her handsome cousin. So Charlie attitudinized unnoticed, and was getting rather out of temper when Phoebe began to sing, and he forgot all about himself in admiration of her. And admiring of her. Gosh, no. Administration. It took everyone by surprise, for 2 years of foreign training added to several at home had worked wonders, and the beautiful voice that used to warble cheerily over pots and kettles now rang out melodiously, or melted to a mellow music that woke a sympathetic thrill in those who listened. Rose glowed with pride as she accompanied her friend, for Phoebe was in her own world now, a lovely world, where no depressing memory of poorhouse or kitchen, ignorance or loneliness came to trouble her, a happy world where she could be herself and rule others by the magic of her sweet gift. Yes, Phoebe was herself now, and showed it in the change that came over her at the first note of music. No longer shy and silent, no longer the image of a handsome girl, but a blooming woman, alive and full of the eloquence her art gave her, as she laid her hands softly together, fixed her eye on the light, and just poured out her song as simply and cheerfully as the lark does soaring toward the sun. My faith, Alec, that's the sort of voice that wins a man's heart out of his breast, exclaimed Uncle Mac, wiping his eyes after one of the plaintive ballads that never grew old. So it would, answered Dr. Alec delightedly. So it has, added Archie to himself, and he was right, for just at that moment he fell in love with Phoebe. He actually did, and could fix the time almost to a second, for at 9:15 he merely thought her a very charming young person. At 20 minutes past he considered her the loveliest woman he ever beheld. At 25 past, she was an angel singing his soul away, and at half after 9, he was a lost man floating over a delicious sea to that temporary heaven on earth where lovers usually land after the first rapturous plunge. Oh, Lord, this is a chapter that never ends. I'm have to stop there, y'all. I'm so sorry. I know I didn't read very long. I'm about to read myself to sleep. Mercy, mercy, mercy. Okay. Sorry, this is going to be a part 3. 1, 2, and 3. Good Lord willing. I'm sure I'll get the rest of it read tomorrow. Be sweet, don't be ugly. I'll go sit in my chair and do one stitch and then go. I'm sure. Okay, love you bunches. See you later, Gators. Bye-bye.